Hello? Okay, test. All right. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome. Before we begin, we'd like to play a short health and safety video brought to you by our partners at Asyad Group. Thank you. Welcome once again to the second edition of Oman Climate Dialogue series. My name is Fathiya Al-Kindi and I'm the Community Engagement Manager at the Environment Society of Oman. It is my pleasure to be your MC this evening. We are proud to have launched the second series of Oman Climate Dialogues in partnership with Asyad Group. The aim of this series is really to deepen the community's knowledge on climate crisis and Oman's journey towards net zero. And this time we are proud to have Nema Water as a supporting sponsor. We are really grateful for all the support that we receive from our corporate sponsors. Tonight's session on powering energy efficiency is featured by key panelists from various sectors across Oman and moderated by ESO's Vice President Rumeythaء al-Bousaidi. We are going to explore how strategies, innovation, and electrification advances energy efficiency and how it assists with decarbonization of industries. So without no further ado, allow me to welcome Rumeythaء al-Bousaidi and our esteemed panelists to the stage. Thank you.
Mic went off. Okay. Very good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I'll extend a warm welcome to our panelists to join us on stage. So Zeynep, as well as Alan and Mohsen. I'm not sure where I can find Dr. Abdullah if he is here, but I know he was. That's what everyone is telling me. But once he comes into the room, we'll just get him to join us, inshallah. So please join us. I think you should sit where your pictures are. With the one in the middle left for Dr. Abdullah. So,
السلام عليكم.
سمعت الصوت على you're live.
فكرت دكتور عبدالله.
So today's, okay, Dr. Abdullah is just right there. Please join us in the middle of the panel. Good to see you. So our discussion for today is about powering energy efficiency in Oman. Usually when we talk about net zero, I think we all are very well aware that back in 2022, Oman announced its net zero plans, identified key technologies that would, and key drivers that would help us reach that net zero goal. And one of the ways to reach it is energy efficiency. But in my humble opinion, I think energy efficiency is not getting the fair share of the platform as well to really talk about how we can really scale things that already exist in Oman and how can we really contribute to that net zero target that we have for 2050. So kind of maybe taking a step back to 2021, this is based on the studies that I know. Back then, when we were working on reaching that net zero target and really publishing our net zero or the transition to a net zero document, what was very clear is that the majority of the carbon emitters in Oman, industry, buildings as well as transport and other sectors, specifically energy, are the main emitters to carbon emissions. And the discussion is always, what are the new technologies that can help us reach there to really reach net zero, while neglecting as well that energy efficiency is already there, and there are practices and things that we need to do within our policies, within the frameworks that we do, and within the industries that we actually work in to really drop that, making us more efficient and also dropping that contribution of carbon emissions to lower than the target that we have as well. But before we actually get into the discussion with our panelist, Mohsen Al-Jabri from the Oman Net Zero Center, as well as Alan Freeman from OQ Alternative Energy, Dr. Abdullah Al-Abri from Suhar Port and Free Zone, and Zeynep اللواتية from the Oman Electricity, UPSAR, sorry. I always get confused with the new name.
From Electricity Regulation, Public Services Regulation.
Exactly, so the Public Services Regulation Authority. We usually start our Oman Climate Dialogues with a poll, and this is just basically to poll the general public who are with us today on the knowledge that they have when it comes to general energy efficiency topics. Some are Oman related, some are global related. No one is an expert when it comes to this. This is the questions that that we pose here are things that we all mostly get wrong. So if you get it right, which is usually the case, by the way, in our climate dialogues, that means that we're very, very well aware as a community as well. So we would invite you to scan the QR code in order for you to participate in the quiz. And once we're ready, I guess the team will let me know so we can start off with the first question.
We are not allowed for the quiz.
So we have 38, 37, someone dropped out, someone came back in. There's more, so we'll give it a few more minutes.
Any rewards for this makeup?
There's no rewards except for you knowing that
Knowledge.
you actually learned something on Oman Climate Dialogues. I think we could start with the first poll question. Okay, so the first poll question tells you in 2023, how much of the newly built electricity production in the world came from the renewable resources like solar, wind, and hydropower? Is it, what do you think it is? 10%, 45%, or 85%? Give it, okay, it seems that the majority have answered. Okay, people are changing their minds. So the correct answer is actually, can you reveal what the correct answer is? Okay, or do I reveal the correct answer? Can the team tell me? I reveal it, okay. So the correct answer is actually C. So 85%, according to the International Energy Agency, which Dr. Abdullah actually worked at. So that's actually the percentage of globally of new built electricity. So that's very different than the already existing electricity sources that actually come from. But the newly built electricity across the world has been really from renewable resources. And this shows that we're not just talking about the future, we're actually living in the global transition right now, and the transition is underway. But then this takes us to the second question of where does Oman stand and how do we ensure energy efficiency keeps pace with generations? So moving on to question 2, what is the average electricity use of a typical Omani household compared to the global average? 8 times. Someone said 8 times. It could be 2 times, it could be 5 times. So what's the correct answer that you think? Okay. Well, interestingly, well, there's still changes of... Okay, so the correct answer is actually correct. So you are actually aware that we're 5 times the global consumption when it comes to energy per capita. Obviously, one of the main reasons behind that is extreme heat that is actually increasing in Oman, but also habits play a role as well in terms of our energy efficiency. Maybe we can hear more from the Net Zero Center when it comes to that. And I guess this is where policy meets people. Efficiency doesn't just live in factories, it actually lives in every appliance that we use, every air conditioner that we actually increase or decrease temperatures from. And it also brings us to the regulatory and behavioral levers that we must pull. That brings me to the third question. Globally, some of the most innovative sectors like pharmaceuticals and electronics actually invest around 12% of their revenue for R&D. They understand that survival depends on staying ahead. But then when we talk about the energy sector, maybe that's different, maybe it's actually way more. So what do you think in regards to question 3? How much do energy and fuel producing companies invest in R&D? Is it 0.3%, 3%, or 30%? It'd be interesting because I'm assuming some of you actually work in the energy sector, so hearing your opinions on this will be interesting. Okay, I'm seeing the numbers are not steady yet. It's changing. Well, you're farly mistaken because it's 0.3%. It's not even 1% of their revenues that are actually spent or even profit into R&D. So that's something that also brings into discussion as well, especially in Oman when we're really, really energy heavy. These companies are actually the ones that are the source of livelihood for many of us. So what happens when we invest little when it comes to the future? What is the risk that we're actually bringing in when we're trapping ourselves into the mechanisms of the past, because we're doing business as usual as well, right? So this actually is the last question of the poll, which kind of is a nice segue to the conversation that we'll be having for the panel. And I think we've established the stakes here. What is the promise and what is the risk and what is basically things that we need to also contribute to actually changing when it comes to energy efficiency. And our panel today brings together a diverse mix of expertise from the regulation side, from the industrial energy side, from the infrastructure, the strategy, and ports innovation side as well. And we'll begin with a quick round of focus questions first before we kind of open it up as well for you all to engage with our panelists. And I guess my first question is basically really kind of stepping back. We saw just in the poll that global efficiency is also something that is kind of coming up, at least with renewables as well. And we know, at least what I've known for a long time, that we always, at least in the climate circles, call energy efficiency the first fuel, because that's the first thing that you do before you actually innovate for something else. It's cheaper than oil for a lot, cleaner than renewables, and immediately available. That's at least the 3 things that I hear a lot within the space of energy efficiency and those who are mingling in those circles. But then you also see that progress remains slow. We're seeing all the other things really picking up, or at least becoming more popular than us discussing what energy efficiency is. So maybe the question to our panelists, a general question first before we go more specifics, and maybe we'll start with Zeynep and then move on to Dr. Abdullah and so on. What does activating energy efficiency mean for you personally or your institution? And what do you think is the key barrier there? Is it behavioral, financial, political, that really you've seen from your experience?
Thank you, Rmita, for the question. First of all, Assalamu alaikum. It's a pleasure to be here in Climate Dialogues. I would like to first thank ESO and Asyad for bringing us together to discuss such an important topic, and I hope my voice sound is okay. For me, activating energy efficiency really means having it embedded in the core part of how we do things. how we design, how we build, how we operate, and how we consume energy. So in practice, this means having energy performance standards in our buildings, our appliances, industrial processes, having energy management systems required for energy-intensive sectors like manufacturing, government entities, commercial operations, and also linking incentives and tariffs with efficiency outcomes so that both supply and demand sides are motivated to save energy.
Great. I think I'll get back to you on the tariffs, but because you talked about it. But Dr. Abdullah, what does it mean to you?
Thank you so much, Rumeytha, and assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to everyone. It's really nice to be here in Asyad, but also in this important theme. And I cannot emphasize more to what Rumeytha has said. Indeed, it's a fundamental. And the way, and first of all, I'm really pleased to see a lot of white hair, especially on the men's side. Obviously, women are always young. But I think it's always important to have that expertise in the room to share and exchange knowledge on such an important theme, especially on what the polls have revealed to us. So what does it mean to me and to Sahar Port and Free Zone, the industry that I represent? It's a baseline. It's a baseline to what we do, to infrastructure, to operations, to procurement, to planning. So it's not basically an add-on, rather on how can we embed efficiency, whether it's energy or resource, in everything we do. And we, as a port and free zone management company, we try to obviously embed this and be a role model to our tenants, be a state of the art, a world class in the region, not only in Oman, in terms of efficiency, but also stimulate and develop the awareness and the knowledge with our tenants. We've got close to 400 companies in Sahar Port and Free Zone. These are mid to large scale companies, but also around 2,000 companies if we include the service stakeholders, the service companies that are servicing and working closely with those key tenants. So it's really an ecosystem. If we link efficiency obviously to energy demand, we consume a sizable share of Oman's gas, and we consume a sizable share of Oman's electricity. We're the biggest industrial hub in Oman, one of the biggest in the region. We're responsible for approximately a quarter of the emissions in Oman. Nothing to be proud of, but I think this is the reality. And the way we intend to really address this is first and foremost by going boldly energy efficiency. Indeed, it's a natural first thing to start up with. We've got a target that we reduce the emissions related to efficiency by 5% by 2030. These are the industrial emissions. We are doing this using various technologies and approaches that I could elaborate later on. And I think what I'm missing here in the ecosystem in Oman, and obviously this requires a more of an integrated approach from the key stakeholders, obviously including the Ministry of Energy and Minerals, but also other players in the system like APSR. I think it's a performance-linked incentives, BLIs. BLIs is a working system elsewhere. You reward, or one rewards the performer. We could do it with a carrot and a stick. I think this is the carrot, is we reward the performer. And secondly, I think it's also important to focus so much on the proactive optimization rather than only focusing on the reactive policing and regulation. So it's really flipping the coin and seeing really what could be done, whether it's for each industrial cluster, but also as a collective hub made up of many clusters, like in Sahar, for example, we're made of petrochemicals, metals, logistics, and food. So that's really my take on efficiency. We're really pressing on. We're really hoping also to see a few things developed in the country.
Alan, do you share the same view that it needs to be a more holistic view, or it's a different kind of challenge that you're facing, or at least in terms of activating energy efficiency for you?
Assalamu alaikum, everybody, and thanks for the invitation as well. We have a similar type of approach, I would say, in OQ. So what we have started to do, or what we have done over the last number of years, is to build a baseline, as you said. Baseline is vitally important for anything to do with energy efficiency or energy performance contracting. But before that, OQ built the methodology around building OQ alternative energy as the mechanism to deliver their net zero target essentially by 2050. But in terms of activating energy efficiency, we need to set the baseline. We need to have the methodology in place, which we have. We have the resources in place in OQ now to deliver on our targets, both short, medium, and long-term targets. And then in terms of how we would kickstart in OQ, we have many different facilities, many different companies, wholly owned and partly owned. So we would normally kick off with an energy audit or a systems audit on our plants. So OQRPI obviously is a big consumer of electricity and fuel, so this is our big focus. We also have facilities in Salalah with BI and OQGN we support, and all of the OQ upstream locations. So there's many different elements that we can implement energy efficiency projects in, and we have done in some locations, and we have a lot more to do between now and 2050. So the foundation has to be there. I think the foundation is there. Some work has been done, but to enact or to accelerate the next steps in terms of energy efficiencies is important for us. And it's through energy audits, systems audits, where we can say where we can reduce, but also where we can increase the productivity of the product being output from the facility. So reduce your energy intensity index.
Yeah. Mohsen, so as far as I know from Dr. Faras, you are now the orchestrator for the full energy efficiency in Oman. How do you tackle it, first of all, and where do you see from the question, how do you think, or how do you view as Oman Net Zero Center activating that energy efficiency for Oman?
Right. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much for the invitation, and thanks for the question. I think that's something very important and critical. So for us, energy efficiency is the low-hanging fruit. It's something very critical. And if we in the center will not be able to take this toward the implementation, then we have to forget about the decarbonization, because that's the easiest things to move ahead with. When we announced the center, it was in the end of December last year. We were thinking about starting revising the Oman Net Zero strategy. But at the same time, in equivalent, we do have very important element to start think about, which is activating the energy efficiency concept within Oman, because that's something very critical for us. So 1 month later, so it was on 8th of January, we released the first tender. I will talk about it in later stage, about the energy efficiency, because we believe on this. And actually today, I'm convinced that we lose opportunity in Oman, but never too late. And when I will reflect within a few minutes about what we witnessing, the value will be added to Oman when we start moving toward energy efficiency project. I think that's by itself it's an opportunity, regardless of decarbonization. So decarbonization is one pillar, but also it is economic impact. It's a social impact in addition to the environmental impact. So I think that's for us something very, very critical. When you are talking about net zero strategy, energy efficiency is one of the main levers, be it in the buildings, industrial, power, all sectors in Oman. And I think implementing energy efficiency, it will be difficult in some sectors, but also most of the sectors, it will be very easy. And we want to prove the concept within the building sectors. And then after that, I think we need to start forcing that. I think policy will be required in Oman, because that's something very critical. Because maybe the current asset owner, they did not recognize to the value or the benefit of energy efficiency. So I think that could be one of the main things to force it in the future.
So maybe for everyone's knowledge here that are not in the energy efficiency kind of sector, if we talk about energy efficiency, is it similar to what a normal person would look into, as in streamlining their house, making sure that their power consumption is much more effective and so on? Or are there other pillars that we need to look at when we look at Oman in general and energy efficiency? What are those pillars that we need to focus on?
So when we are thinking about the building by itself, so most of the energy efficiency consumed through the ACs. 60 or 70% of the electricity consumed from the AC. But when we are thinking about the energy efficiency as a model for whole building, we are talking about, how we could enhance the energy usage through using the best kind of, machines within the building, better lighting system, even water management. It's part of energy efficiency. So that's part. Second part, how we could also deploy solar to the building, because that's for us something critical. How you think, if you think about a new building, for example, how you think about the material you will use to construct your building. Isolation, that's something very, very critical. So it's, comprehensive thinking rather than it is only switching off the power. It is a full ecosystem where we know it will be very difficult to start changing the culture within the Oman, but we believe that we could do it together with our stakeholder. And I think we are in very good shape right now. We just started, we have a lot of kind of dreams within this year to prove the concept and to move faster within energy efficiency era.
Great. So I'll get back to you with the tender that you worked on, but maybe coming back to Zeynep, because I know there's specific building codes and appliances that you're working on. What are the strides that we've taken when it comes to this, specifically when it comes to codes on this? That might help me as well, that I can pass on the message back home and say there's a specific code that we need to stick to.
Sure. I mean, in line with what Mohsen said, and the poll that we just had about residential energy consumption, Oman's energy use at homes is very high. I think it was 5 times higher, right? And it makes sense. I mean, we have summers and then we have hot summers and then extremely hot summers. And
I think I will quote that. We have summers and then we have hot summers.
And extremely
hot summers. Yeah.
So these are the 3 seasons in Oman, really. And then we have something that is similar to winter, but it's like a mild summer. And for that, with the increasing temperature as a result of climate change, our electricity demand will increase. Obviously, for cooling, 70% almost of energy consumption at households are consumed for cooling. And so the cooling demand and the electricity consumption will increase if we don't do anything about it. And the building code and the energy efficiency standards for appliance, that's what they do, that's where their role comes. The Ministry of Housing and Urban Planning, I think this year they have finalized the building code, Oman Building Code, which will set general requirements for all building types in Oman. I'm not sure when they enforced. I'm waiting for their implementation plan to come. But they're also engaging us, the Authority for Public Services Regulation, and other entities to finalize an energy efficiency and sustainability code. So this is something very specific to energy efficiency and sustainability. Now, the cooling need, how we can reduce the cooling need. We need to enjoy thermal comfort at home, right? And you do that by keeping hot air from entering your house and keeping the cooled air in, trapping the cooled air inside. And that's what good insulation does. That's what efficient windows and doors do. And so that's the requirements that will be in the energy efficiency and sustainability code. And then you have the appliance standards, efficiency requirements for appliances. Alhamdulillah, at least in Oman, we have one for ACs, which is very important. That's the only standard that is enforced. We have other standards like for water heaters, washing machines, refrigerators. They're there, but they're not enforced, unfortunately. And actually, the authority is currently working with the Ministry of Commerce, Industry and Investment Promotion on lighting standards. So we are already working on these standards. Some of them are enforced, some of them are not enforced. At least once we enforce the building code and the energy efficiency standards for appliances, we'll fix the issue of new builds. At least our new buildings will be sustainable, will be efficient. But we still have the problem of old buildings, existing buildings, where most inefficiencies exist. So we need to address both new and existing buildings. And with that, we can bring the energy usage closer to the global norm.
All right, so something interesting that you said, that we have an air conditioning appliance code.
So if you
What
go-
does that mean?
So if you go and buy an AC right now in the market, you would see an energy efficiency label. So you label, like, you have like green, different shades of green and red, and indicates the efficiency. Basically, the great thing about it is the most inefficient appliance will just not exist in the market because they failed to meet the standard. So now what you have in the market, you have a range of efficiencies. At least all of them are efficient in different levels. So that's kind of the decision making for the homeowner will be easier, because whatever he picks, at least it will be efficient. But then it's up to him how efficient he wants to go.
Thank you so much for that, Zainab. Going back to Muhsin, you mentioned the tendering, and there's a specific roadmap when it comes to buildings. Is it in line with what she mentioned, or is it more on old buildings and you need to retrofit, or how does that look like, basically?
Yeah, so actually, we have to think about the current building, the existing building, and also the upcoming buildings. It will be very easy to control the upcoming buildings through, for example, the new code, because that's, will set the criteria for future construction activity. But the most difficult part, how you could rectify the current issue within the current buildings in Oman. And actually, in the day when we start doing energy efficiency audit for the building, I was shocked when I see the results. A lot of buildings have a potential of saving 30, 40, 50%.
Are these commercial buildings or residential buildings?
Government building.
Okay.
So it's purely, we are focusing, by the way, in the first batch in the government building. But also we had observation, some of the building, their energy efficiency around, 8, 7%, so they are efficient. So that can, tell you in Oman, we do have some practice, some role model activities where a lot of energy efficiency is already taking place. Maybe as Zainab mentioned, for example, the AC's, labeling, that support to define the best kind of setup. But we do have the current kind of buildings in the government. Some of them, they are efficient, but most of them, they are not efficient. And because of that, when we saw the first result, we released the first tender. It was on the 8th of January. And tomorrow, I'm going to present the final outcome to award the first package of the energy efficiency. It was very tough timing, by the way. It is not easy to convince the stakeholders in the importance of the energy efficiency. Investing in some of these kind of a project, if it's not a common practice in the country, then it will be very difficult to prove that. So we take that kind of burden in us, and we say we will prove the concept. And if we prove it this year, on a yearly basis, we will have new batches of government building. Within hopefully 8 to 10 years, we will be able to greenify all the government buildings within the Oman, and we want to set that as the role model target, and we want to show the private sector they could move easily toward the implementation of energy efficiency. When we released the first tender, it was consists of 14 buildings, government building. We know that all of these buildings has a very high potential, more than 15% energy saving, some of them 30% energy saving. And then when we released the tender, it was for 4 selected company. They are the best in the regional kind of company. So it's Taqa Solution, Innova, Dalkia, and Siemens. And we received the technical and commercial bids. It was aligned with our expectation. We are expecting the total investment will be around 2 million Omani riyal. But if we invest 2 million to do the enhancement of these 14 buildings, we are expecting to have saving of 450,000 Omani riyal in yearly basis. That's mean we will break even within 5 years, IRR 15%, which is very, very high. But also, this is the direct benefit. What will be the indirect benefit? Within those only 14 buildings, we are going to reduce CO2 emission by 7,000 CO2 equivalent in yearly basis. That's huge within 14 buildings. Second, we will avoid burning gas. Gas is part of our natural resources. Rather than you burn the gas to produce electricity, you could utilize it for something else. And I think that's a huge benefit for Oman when we start saving, the gas consumption in the country. So this is the second. Third, you reduce your electricity bill and you enjoy the saving. So basically, after 10 years of the contract execution, and by the way, when we released the tender, it was for both shared saving and guarantee saving. And just to give you more kind of clarity on the difference between them, guarantee saving, you have the government or the asset owner, they invest in doing all of the enhancement, and then you pay certain kind of fees to the developers, the ESCOs we call it, and then you take the majority of the the saving of the electricity bill. Shared saving is different model. Shared saving, ESCOs will invest, and they will enjoy the majority of saving for 10 years, and then after that, the remaining money will go back to the government. When we released the tender, all 4 ESCOs, they were interested in both model. That can give a signal to the market. If you don't have money to develop the energy efficiency model within your building, you could give it to the third party. They will invest everything. They will only take from you the reduction of the electricity bill, and then after year 10, you just enjoy the remaining saving. I will not say which model we are going to use, but Oman, I think, will take very smart decision to capitalize on the investment. If there will be good return on investment using one of those model, we want to, to run or execute the project using that model. And then, inshallah, on a yearly basis, we'll have a batch of a project to prove, the concept within government link building. So that's in a quick and a brief about it.
Can you tell us which are the 14 buildings, or that's under wraps until the project is done?
It is actually the headquarters of Ministry of Labor, one of the buildings from Royal Court Affairs, and then 12 buildings from SKU, Sultan Qaboos University.
Interesting.
We were thinking about buildings within the Ministry's road, but at that time it was very difficult to take some of them because we have different options with that kind of set of building, which is district cooling. So I think it's need more kind of a study and analysis in order to decide if the ministry road will need to go through the energy efficiency, package or through district cooling. That's why we did not take in the first batch none of the building within that.
Good. One last question before I move to Dr. Abdullah. You mentioned that there are some examples that have been very energy efficient. Can you mention one building in Oman, the most energy efficient building in Oman, at least as a benchmark?
So I cannot mention صراحة, I don't know the other buildings, but based on our analysis, Central Bank of Oman, I'm not sure if someone from there, really their building is very efficient.
Okay.
And they were implementing certain kind of measure within the buildings, and they were saving a lot of energy. So we removed them from the potential list of projects.
Could it be because they were very financially driven that drove a lot of the energy efficiency?
Possible.
That could be.
or you could see that if you have the right kind of leader within the organization, he or she will drive that.
Yes.
So, for example, if you put Dr. Abdullah now in one of the, I am 100% sure that Sahar building currently is very efficient. It's lead by example. Those leaders who they drive the, this kind of change within the.
Yeah, and perhaps the Asyad building, maybe we can hear more from the Asyad team if it's as energy efficient as we think it is.
Wow.
Okay. All right.
That's a
We
good
just heard
one.
it from
Yeah.
the lion's mouth. Dr. Abdullah, in terms of, so we've heard buildings a lot in terms of energy efficiency there. You operate a port, which has a various different kind of sort of requirements as well. So what specific example can you kind of shed light on that you've worked on when it comes to energy efficiency for the port that really kind of is reaping its rewards now?
Thank you, Rumeytha. And just as a point of clarification, when I mentioned initially, before I address your question, that the 5% target by 2030, that is so much on energy, on demand side management. So it does not include any renewables, no supply. It's just managing the demand and trying to reduce and optimize where necessary. So, with regards to the question, Rumeytha, indeed, we are a port in the free zone. It's complicated. We've got a very sizable companies like obviously OQ, nationals and multinationals, and every company have their priority with regards to ESG. Some of them, obviously, they're registered internationally, so they've got their own targets. But then what we're trying to do is we're trying to establish a baseline whereby we get a consensus of what could be the priorities towards 2030 and beyond, but at least until 2030, so that we are all kind of walking the talk. And with that, we've established Sahara Net Zero Alliance, and that alliance is nothing but a dialogue, just like today, is to gather those priorities and see how can we together work with the tenants to address the top priorities. Now, when it comes, obviously, that Sahara Net Zero Alliance, we've got a lot of priorities on CCUS, which is, I would say, the top of the triangle, and then hydrogen, especially the blue and the green hydrogen, and then it goes to biofuels, and then it goes to electrification, and then it goes to efficiency at the bottom. Efficiency is the natural start for everybody. And with efficiency, we've tried to really establish best practices, examples, wherein we get everybody excited that, and we get the culture going, a positive culture. So we've started really by optimizing. We've done the baselining, and we've seen a lot of emissions are coming from sub-optimized logistics. We've got a lot of trucks going and come back. We've got a lot of cars coming to the port in the morning, thousands of cars for employees, but also hundreds of trucks coming to the port and leaving the port. So we've seen how can we've studied what are the reasons for the congestions in the morning and also in the afternoon. And then we've explored with our stakeholders and mainly the Royal Oman Police of how can we optimize this. So optimizing the slots and the entries to the port, because they've got to be cleared when they enter the port. So we were successful in reducing the congestions in the morning and the afternoon, and that reduced the emissions quite a bit, but also made the flows really seamless, so less headaches on employees. That is one. And two, we try to optimize the common use infrastructure. We've got a lot of piping for gas, a lot of piping for water, and we've got 5 different types of water, could imagine. We've got a lot of lines for electricity. So there's a lot of corridors and leeways for those common use infrastructure. We've done a comprehensive study as part of the master plan for the port and the free zone towards 2040, and the study is ongoing as we speak. But we've got kind of the main outcomes coming out of it, is that we can optimize a lot of infrastructure. We can start by repurposing some of the pipelines from being purely for gas or purely for oil to, for example, hydrogen, which we're really considering. And once we do that, not only it will make the investments on hydrogen more competitive, but also accelerate the transition. So that is also something that we are engaging with the tenants. And thirdly is to try to switch fuels. So we are the first port in the Middle East to start using biodiesel. So obviously everybody in the region and most of the world uses petroleum diesel to power the tugboats. We've taken a bold step to try to switch to biodiesel. And with that, we've started with 5% biodiesel and 95% petroleum diesel, so blended together. And then we've started increasing the percentage. Now it's 20% default to us. So it's no going back. 20% of biofuels in the mix is already a default. We aim to ramp up all the way to 100%. That is also efficiency. It's abating or avoiding a lot of emissions in that perspective. We're also taking bold steps at the port. The bold steps is obviously to pull all the tenants to really a bigger true north, which is to say that indeed efficiency is important. Renewables will come because they're already in the money. It's just a matter of how do we connect the renewables to the grid and the grid to the industries. But then the big questions from SINZA, Sahara Net Zero Alliance, of how can we best position the port and the free zone into the future so that we remain in business. There is a lot of competition in the region. So with that, we've taken steps like to install shore power. Shore power is nothing but electric chargers, but to the ships. Right? So the same way we charge our cars, shore power is making the connections electrical connections in the docking areas of the ships, and then the ships can tag into the electric power. Thereby, they're shutting off their petroleum engines, their petroleum diesel engines, while they're docking. And usually ships dock anything between 7 hours to 15 hours. So you could imagine they've got really big engines, and they emit a lot of emissions when they're docking. And if anything, it makes our weather even more hotter, right? So a lot of emissions in that space. So this is something that, and to be the first project in the region. It's also something to be proud of. It's a bold step into the future. So sharing infrastructure, optimizing the current infrastructure, making some projects to really showcase our moves, whether it's in the biofuels, optimizing logistics, but also circularity. We've studied in details, and in fact, we're doing this as we speak. Dr. Manniyah is with us, and she's engaging all the stakeholders in terms of tenants, but also the Ministry of Economy. We intend to make Sohar as an efficient circular economy cluster, wherein we've mapped out all the input and output processes. So one output of a company can be a good commodity or good input to another industry. So this is already mapped out. We've got already industries in the ground, like for example, recycling batteries, recycling tires, recycling some of the fuels, consumed fuels in the port. So those are some of the steps that we're taking to really showcase and build that kind of culture, but also ecosystem.
Yeah, I'm seeing that there's a lot of your initiatives has to do with convergence and finding common things and making sure that things are streamlined as well. Moving on to Alan, and I think a question within the same realm when it comes to OQ, you have quite a substantial industrial footprint. What are those efficiency or energy efficiency measures that have been successful? And what are the ones that you see, maybe if you're able to kind of share, that there's some hesitation towards, that there's no kind of uptick to?
Okay. Yeah, we're similar. We have, or maybe I'll take a step back for a minute. So in OQ, we have many companies, as most of you know. In OQAE, where I work at, we have three main business drivers, or three main elements that we're trying to deliver. So one is energy efficiency through Energy Excellence team. We're a small team, but quite a busy team, which I will tell you some of the projects we're working on. We have the renewables team, which you probably all know about and hear about, and we also have low carbon molecules, who is looking at hydrogen, ammonia, etc., methanol. In terms of the energy efficiency team, OQ have a 25% reduction on CO2 by 2030 in line with the government commitments. So OQ is responsible for roughly 10% of the country emissions. Okay, so it's quite substantial. Most of our emissions are in Sohar, in RPI, in the refinery. But we have significant emissions in our other locations, in Musandam and oil and gas fields and Salalah. So in terms of energy efficiency or energy excellence, we have to look at all of these and map them out. So as I said earlier, we've done the baselining through our decarbonisation team. We have built a roadmap to 2030, which includes energy efficiency as number one, which we're implementing now and implementing for the last few years. The large-scale renewable projects will come online later towards 2030. And then we have low-carbon molecules. We have to see how we will integrate them into our business model over the next couple of years. So some examples of our energy projects. So we are at, you asked me where are we at the moment? We're about 8 to 9% reduction from our CO2 baseline from 2021, which was established, mainly through low and low capex ECMs, industrial ECMs, where we are monitoring our energy efficiency index. So energy efficiency index is the energy you put in for the output you get from your product or from your facility. So some of the work that was completed already was working on steam systems to make them more efficient, working on throughput of the product through the process in RPI and in Salalah mainly, to use less energy to get the product you want out. So obviously doing some work on the crackers, working on the steam systems, as I said, working on the electricity efficiency in your turbines. So this is mostly done by the teams in cooperation with us. And then for the next step that we have to do, it's more on the investment required to implement the next range of projects. So we're running out of no capex ECMs basically. So we are in the budgeting process currently at the moment, where we're putting our budgets together for next year, for the year after, for every year until 2030, and we need to see how much it's going to cost us and where that money is going to come to implement the remaining projects. So large-scale solar will have a big impact on that. So I said we're 8 or 9%. Solar will bring us up a lot, but we still have probably 5 or 6% that we need to find. Some examples of what we're looking at. So our team, we look at the upstream sites, so the oil and gas extraction sites and production sites and treatment of the product. So some of our remote locations are still on diesel, which is very costly and very intensive on CO2 emissions. So what we have come up with, or what we have done, is to do a pilot on these extraction wells, to have them powered on a hybrid solution, which is solar during the day and diesel at night. We're also looking at solar during the day and battery, but at the moment it's probably going to be a hybrid solution for the first while. Some other locations, we're looking at the steam system in Salalah, where we can make good improvements in terms of steam system. Some of the processes are quite old, so we need to replace some of the equipment. Again, it's low cost and a high return for that, so the payback is a couple of months. So this is one of the downstream sites. And to coincide with what Mohsen was saying in buildings, so OQ is a large portfolio of buildings. Okay, we have one project that has gone for FID at the moment, which is 150 buildings in Sohar Port, where the savings are quite significant. They're about $1.4, $1.5 million per year. Guaranteed savings, similar to what Mohsen is doing with the Net Zero Centre. 9,400 tons of CO2 per year saved. So this is one project. And then we will roll the same type of project out for all of the buildings in OQ across all of the country, including Musandam. Excuse me. So in a nutshell, this is what we're doing in the Energy Excellence team.
Can I?
Yes,
Yeah.
sure.
You know, the intervention of Adam, but also of Mohsen about buildings. We know that we consume a good amount of gas in Sohar for the production of heat as part of the processes, RBIs and the likes. And we consume 3.4 million cubes of gas every single day just for the heat, for the production of heat. And one of the projects is that we've got already some examples of heat recovery systems in Sohar. Some of them, they're really kind of abating equivalent to 15,000 tons of CO2 every year. So quite sizable. That's like taking off 300,000 cars off the street. So really sizable. What we saw, and this is a project that is led by, I could see Smart Bayan sitting there, is to see how much heat can be recovered. We've got a lot of exothermic processes in Sohar. Exothermic is a lot of processes emitting heat. So the question is, if we recover the heat from those various processes and establish a district heating/cooling, then that could be also a benefit. Mm-hmm. And she's now modeling the district heating and the district cooling, and to see what is the best and optional, the best way for both the recovered liquids, like condensed water, but also recovered gases, like flue gas. So whether it's closed loop or open loop. If that is, or I would say, once that is really formulated, it have a major savings in emissions, or reductions in emissions, but also savings in natural gas. Yeah, so,
For sure. And that was a lot of technical speak for a lot of us. So maybe I'm switching gears a bit with our last question before we open it up to the audience. Mohsen, you mentioned that this is an economic opportunity. I know that for a lot of Omanis, they wonder how energy efficiency would be an economic opportunity if you're talking about buildings efficiency. So how does that translate basically as an opportunity for the general public?
Yeah. As I stated at the beginning, with the first batch, we opened the chance for regional companies to compete to win the contract, because we want to bring the best kind of setup for the country, bring the right competition, and then after that, bring the best example, and then move toward, capitalizing in the current ecosystem available in Oman. I think if you consider that in yearly basis, we will have similar or bigger projects worth of 2-3 million Oman Riyal, only from government side. It's aside from all, private sector. It's aside from all government-owned companies. It's only purely government. I think down the road we will have a huge opportunity within, I would call it in-country value for the local SMEs. It was very risky to consider the local ISCOs to start with the first batch. As I said, we want to prove the concept, we want to move faster, but then down the road we do have a target. Within few years, we want to ensure that we have a local Omani as a core of ISCO company where they can run this business in the future. So this one potential kind of element. Second, when you do energy efficiency project ISCOs, through ISCOs, you will need to do a lot of MRV, so monitoring and verification. And usually monitoring and verification, you give it to third party. Third party could be any certified Omani. I think that will be our current target. How we, within the center, through our collaboration with our stakeholder, ensure within the short time, we will develop the capacity within Omani to be certified, MRV certified, to start auditing the building.
So certification for businesses or for individuals in this case? Or both?
It could be for both. Freelancers, or it will be for local, SMEs. In addition to that, what we are currently, thinking even through our engagement with Dr. Farah's team, how we could encourage everyone to build up their own ecosystem, not only from the enhancement point, no, but the driving of the, enhancement. So if you don't have the right kind of expert, or we call it safety, for example, energy efficiency officer within your building, no one will drive it in the future. So we are thinking about a model where we could force, the high consumer of electricity to hire an energy efficiency officer to drive the energy efficiency, file down the road. So all of these will be Omani. So that's a good opportunity for Omani. Last but not least, you will notice with the energy efficiency, there will be like a new kind of, machines used, or a new kind of system to be used. This could be localized. It could be manufactured in Oman. Also, very special thanks to Sahar Port. They are now localizing, for example, the solar panel production, which could be also a good way of, closing the circuit. So rather than you bringing the solar from outside the country, we could bring it from Sahar. In the future, we could have a hub of LED production lights within Oman. Or we could think about, HVAC system, or think about the AC, or district cooling. All of these will come with a lot of opportunity, and we know down the road there will be like a huge kind of chance for all Omani to get benefit out of this setup.
Those are really amazing opportunities. I'm switching gears to the industry now. For entrepreneurs, those who are actually working in their organizations right now, who are handling the sustainability file, that are looking for ways to kind of really push that energy efficiency agenda, what advice would you give them, and how should they start if they haven't started? For those who have started, what are the next steps?
Want me to start? So in OQ, and particularly in the Energy Excellence team, we meet with different suppliers every week. What we want to do in our team, in our department, is to look at the best of technology advances in terms of energy efficiency, CO2 reduction, digitalization, AI, anything like that. We will open the door, we will give people the opportunities. We love to do pilot projects to prove the concept. All of the oil and gas players will probably do the same. But in our team, we have the mandate from Dr. Talal to check all of the local people that reach out to us and give them the opportunity to present their product to us. And then if we can find a suitable solution for that, we have no problem doing pilot projects and run them through the Energy Excellence team on behalf of some of the entities in OQ.
And from my side, I think for the ones that are already kind of in the market, I would say keep going. We are, I wouldn't say mandated to really support you, but we're really keen to support you. I think the opportunity is big. The request from our side is that you continue building the momentum with us. So it's really important in sustainability that I see is to continue building the culture and the consensus and the shared thinking After all, this is a new subject not only in Oman, but across the region and in the world. So for somebody who is already in the market, I think he's got already the skin, he's got already the thinking, so it's important to really keep going and build that networking. And we'll do everything possible in our hands to really support SMEs. For entrepreneurs, I think it's really a good opportunity. You know, in every kind of challenge that the world faces, whether we look at the الثورة الصناعية الأولى والثانية والثالثة, so the first industrial revolution or the second or the third, maybe this is not to that scale, but this is still big. You know, companies are talking millions, if not billions, about transition. Companies are really willing to find solutions for their challenges. In Sohar, for example, one example that I've seen is that you know, we're talking about the cost of capture for CO2 that ranges between 50 and above per ton, $50 per and above per ton. But then with an SME, with a unique, I would say, arrangement of the business, so really getting the expertise without really kind of partnering with major companies, some companies in Sahara have managed to reduce the cost to $15 per ton. So from 50 to 15. And that's really by really looking at the opportunity and making the arrangement in a very lean and professional way. So the opportunity is there. I think once the picture is clear for entrepreneurs, once the idea itself, whether it's in heat recovery, whether it's in CO2 capture or anything else, whether the idea itself is making really commercial viability, I think it's really worth going to the next step and start looking at the numbers and moving on. But first, challenge the idea. If the challenge, you know, makes a success, go to the next step with the numbers, and then you should find your way to the market.
Moving on to Zeynep. I know that we talked about this before when we were preparing for the session, that there are some challenges that you're seeing, at least as a regulator coming in, looking at local firms really, their pitfalls specifically. What are those, and what advice would you give them to kind of overcome those as your last words for the session?
So when it comes to energy efficiency, there are two things I would like to mention. Maybe the first thing was the challenge that we have faced, or the barrier to scaling energy efficiency efforts in Oman, was the lack of one dedicated national entity that sets energy efficiency policy and ensure its implementation across all sectors. Although many entities are involved, the authority, the Ministry of Energy, the electricity companies, but not having clear leadership and coordination made things difficult. And you know, ESCO is such a great example because that was a project that the authority a couple of years ago tried to kickstart, but we faced a lot of challenges when it comes to contractual agreements, financial obligation, and so on. And despite all the effort and the time, you know, that was put on that project, it did not move forward. So when I heard Mohsen talking about ESCO and tendering, I was really happy because this project has been a thorn in my team's heart for so long. And I think having the center is such a big jump towards activating energy efficiency and ensuring that all efforts in the country is aligned. So that's one thing I'd like to address. The other thing when it comes to energy efficiency, you know, there are two parts. There is energy efficiency when it comes to generating the electricity itself, so generation and transmission, and that's where the authority plays a big role in terms of, you know, listening requirement and performance monitoring to ensure that, you know, generation and transmission operation are efficient. You have efficient dispatching, loss reduction, and of course ensuring that the grid can accommodate renewable energy. So that's one part that we're producing energy efficiently. The other part is consumption, and I'm going to say a word here which I know will open the door for a lot of debate and question, which is tariffs, electricity tariffs. We cannot deny that electricity tariffs can encourage or discourage energy efficiency, and I think this is a conversation that we should have openly and discuss the importance of that. In Oman, in our tariff structure, we have cost-reflective tariffs. for large consumers. And that cost-reflective tariffs provide financial incentives for large consumers like the port and other industries to invest in energy efficiency technologies and to invest in renewables, shift their consumption away from peak demand and so on. But that's not the case with smaller consumers, especially like businesses and residential, where subsidy lowers that incentive. Having low electricity prices basically takes the motivation to save energy. We need to be honest with that. It takes the motivation to save energy. Why we just now started caring about building your house efficiently, buying efficient appliances, because you don't want to pay that much on electricity. You want to reduce your consumption. But again, it's really what we're trying to do is to strike a balance between affordability and social equity, and also setting a tariff that encourages efficient use of electricity.
So key takeaways that I hear from the discussion: energy efficiency is a low-hanging fruit. There is a strike of a balance that we need to do. The industrial big players in Oman, well, one thing, a lot of opportunities for energy efficiency apparently is in Suhar port because all the pilots are mostly there. Industry is doing its part, at least the big players in Oman, be it Suhar port, be it OQ and the oil and gas industry. And there is hope in the tendering and a lot of opportunities that are coming within the sector. But that doesn't mean that it stops there. There's still a lot of room to grow. There's still a lot for us to learn. And there's still a lot of dialogue that we can actually learn from, which I will turn to Q&A before. But before that, I'll have to conclude for the channel, for the YouTube. So thank you so much for joining us on this really powerful panel. I think it was very interesting. If it was up to me, this panel would have been 3 hours long because I have so many questions based on a lot of the inputs that came there. So a big thank you to Mohsen Al-Jabri, the Director General at Net Zero Center, Alan Freeman from OQ Alternative Energy, Dr. Abdullah, VP of Sustainability at Suhar Port and Free Zone, Zeynep Al-Lawati from the Authority of Public Service Regulation. I hope I said that right. Thank you all, and we will turn it all now to the Q&A for anyone who has questions. Before that, I know Dr. Firas has some inputs in regards to the policy, so I'll pass the mic to you if you have any comments in regards to that.
No real inputs, because I think the panel really covered it fantastically. It's just that Zeynep's last comment triggered something we've been working on at the ministry for quite a while. It's very controversial as she knows in APSR, but if you put things into perspective, it's not only that it's demotivational or removes the motivation, it actually kills the business case if you do not have cost-reflective tariffs. It's not an emotional thing. In the end, it's a rational business topic. So whether you do not quantify emissions or if you do not send the economic signals, people will not react. It doesn't matter how much you believe in environment. If it does not make a business case, the vast majority will not act on it. The other element that Zeynep mentioned was the tariff. It's not just that the tariff is subsidized and low. It is also not cost reflective from a time signal perspective, which is a very important element. So if you look at some of the nations, some of them have implemented voluntary systems, tariffs, where you as a residential can actually expose yourself to the spot market in a buffered way. But that makes you part of the solution rather than a problem. If you are receiving a flat subsidized tariff that is purely based on energy consumption, you have zero motivation to change your behavior. It could be really the worst time in summer and you're blasting all of your ACs because it really makes no difference. Whereas, I give you an example that you see in agriculture. When they have time of use tariffs, you would see them go and, for example, if they need to heat the water for the plants in Europe or cool the plants here, they would chill it or heat it when the tariff is low and keep it in thermal tanks. And then they actually go and use it when they need to use it, when the time of use is expensive. So all of these elements are really important. but they require social acceptance, which is something Zeynep also mentioned. And it is events like this where, with the environmental society and all of the others, when you promote this information sharing, that hopefully things percolate, and you can get people to start accepting the social responsibility we have towards the planet and society.
Thank you, Dr. Faras. Do we have any questions? Aisha.
Thank you, everyone, for a very insightful session. Dr. Abdullah was mentioning maybe creating a reward system so companies can invest in energy efficiency. Reminds me of a white certificate which is used in Italy, France, and different European countries. They created a market for companies who are investing in energy efficiency, where when they reduce usage of fuel oil, then they can sell this certificate as well. And this is one way to encourage investment. So any potential markets coming to Oman as a strategy to enhance EU?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I think when we will set up the decarbonization strategy, we will come across certain kind of levers, and we will start forcing certain kind of levers. And you will notice that if X industry did not, try to cut on their kind of CO2 emission, they will need to pay certain kind of charge or penalties or whatever we call it. This is one part of it. The second part is the incentives. So what we are trying to do right now in the center, we want to build the whole ecosystem to activate the carbon market. You will be able to trade your certification in the future, but it's not energy efficiency, it's not for this specifically, but for the technology-based reduction, you will be able to trade your certification in the future. In addition to that, what we are currently doing in Oman Net Zero Center, and we had a lot of engagement with the different stakeholders involved in this, developing a mechanism to mobilize green and sustainable finance to the country. So there are several funds available around the world. They are supporting ESG compliance projects and more specifically climate-related projects, and they could give you very cheap kind of cost of capital. We might incentivize certain industry who move faster toward decarbonizing their activity by bringing and allowing them to use the low cost of capital to further decarbonize their activity. All of these thinking now being cooked in the center. Soon, together with our stakeholders, the main stakeholders will start announcing some kind of policy and incentives, inshallah.
I actually have a question based on what Zeynep mentioned and based on the net zero and Dr. Faras's comment. How do you kind of come about with having a much more open dialogue? I think, in my opinion, that all these players, or all main players in Oman, specifically in the government, when it comes to policies, when it comes to orchestrating, are speaking much more on a higher level. But it's not cascaded down to the actual person that worked on the project, i.e. Zeynep and her team, for instance, who had no idea until this panel that this tendering, for instance, happened. So how do we encourage that dialogue and conversation, at least?
I think this kind of session is very, very interesting, very important. We need to make it more kind of, more frequent. I was invited some time ago in Sohar for something we call it Rmsa. It is like a public kind of, set up. I was shocked about the number of young Omani attending there, and we were debating certain kind of topics, and this is not related to decarbonization. I was just invited to, witness the discussion. And I saw myself, engaging with everyone and then be part of the discussion. And I think these kind of things we have to really start activating, how we approach the community, how we, because at the end, if I'm talking about decarbonization, if not each individual of us contribute positively toward reducing the CO2 and, bringing the best kind of practice and changing our culture, we will not achieve the decarbonization. Further engagement, I think, is something very, very critical. Yeah.
I think the topic that you raised about awareness is extremely important, and Mohsen alluded to part of it. One of the things I discovered once I joined the government 2 years ago is that there's an enormous amount of research that is being done across the government, different entities, the government-owned enterprises that are under it. And I would say almost only 5% of it is presented to the public. And for me, that was really shocking. And one of the things we've been discussing in the ministry and the sector that this needs to change. We understand that some of the studies we do have elements that are certainly confidential. But every single study we did or have done in the sector can either be shared in its entirety or have a censored version of it made digestible to the public. And this is a culture change that we need to work on. There's a lot that we say we cannot share this. And I think that does not help not just the general public, but more importantly, from my perspective, even the companies working in the sector to actually adapt and be a voice. And then you have also the academics who could also look at this and chip in, and they're completely excluded. So I found it shocking that Zeynep does not know about.
No, I have to comment here to defend Mahsen. It's not that we didn't know that they're working on. Actually, they engaged our team from early on, and we did share our experience and challenges. Hopefully, that helped them avoid the challenges that we have faced. What I meant, the results, the tendering, and the whole decarbonization plan, I heard it in Sustainability Week when he presented in OCW talks.
So good, alhamdulillah. But
less of a shock now.
But no, they were connected. We're all actually related. I mean, there's no stronger relationship between the ministry and the regulator.
Absolutely.
So if that's missing, that Allah. But I really believe that dissemination of information. I know that one of the worries is that some of this information is really technical, and some of the topics are really complex, and if they're read without understanding, it will just create a lot of noise. I still don't think that's a good enough excuse not to share. We just need to make it digestible, and if really required, just then limit it to who gets it shared if that's really a concern. But I think 70% of the work that's being done can be shared to the general public in bites that are digestible to them.
And I would like to add to that an experience that we had. So last year, the authority launched our Sustainable Energy campaign. And honestly, it was such a good experience because I always thought people know this much, but I discovered no, like they know even less. And we went to different governance and we talked to people about efficient housing, about EVs, about renewables. So that was a great experience, and it showed that people are really looking forward to that discussion and to understand how we, develop these regulations and what does it to mean to them on a personal level, how they actually going to benefit from this policy, or how are they going to benefit from renewables or EVs. So that was such a great experience that we had last year, and hopefully and we didn't do it alone. We did it in collaboration with the Ministry of Social Development and Ministry of Youth. So it was a combined government effort, and I think going forward there will be more collaboration under the leadership of Oman Net Zero Center in terms of awareness, hopefully.
Great. Yes.
Hi, so I just have one comment. As you are talking today about R&D, I know that R&D is very important, and I think Huawei today is investing more than 50% of their outcome on R&D around the world, and we are actually, as we are partner of Huawei in this, we would like to work together on whatever R&D in Oman, because it's done already around the world. Oman already we have a Huawei training center, and it will definitely be a pleasure. So please involve us on your whatever R&D you are willing to do. Huawei is already number one. It will be definitely a pleasure for us as well to be part of this.
Duly noted.
Thank you, Rumeytha, and the esteemed panelists for this fruitful discussion. And congratulations to Mohsen and Oman Net Center for this milestone that tomorrow we are very glad that you are announcing the winners of ISCO or Business in Oman or retrofit of government building. And I recall Dr. Abdullah Al-Abri started many good things in the country. A few years ago, 5 years, we talked about the same subject with Absar, and then COVID came and many challenges came. The same with the hydrogen. He started also this nice story. So I would like to appreciate him also for his previous efforts. My question is about the role, the success of energy efficiency in our neighbors at least is because the existing of sober ISCO, we call it, in Dubai, and they replicate it in Saudi. So does the center will play that role? It's like the sober ISCO, or just we will govern or regulate and then we waiting to the market to react? Because without that, it will be very difficult. Because also if you think about it, if I am today a hotel or a big factory, my bill is 100 or 200,000 Oman Riyal under CRT, cost reflective tariff. And there is companies that can intervene and make 20-30% saving. So what stopped me today from doing that? Should I wait for the government to prove it in 1-2 years in government building? Or should it be regulated? Or it's a self-awareness? It's like I am fat, I need to go exercise, or I go for to the gym and diet centers, I pay for it. We need to understand, does the factories today in the country, if they know there is a saving, the regulatory stop them, the ecosystem, they need something, or they can start even without waiting the government?
Right. Thank you for the question. Just to also set the expectation. So tomorrow we will present the final outcome of this to the tender board. If we get it approved, then we'll float, we'll sign the contract. But the most important element, we get the approval from Ministry of Finance to finance this project. So I think that's something done. Regarding the super ISCO, so now we consider the center as a super ISCO for government-linked buildings, and we want to prove the concept. And we want to ensure, and also special thanks to OQ, I did not mention that at the beginning. With the support from OQ at the beginning, OQ Alternative Energy, we were like developing the concept of super ISCO, center being the super ISCO for government-linked building. We want to activate this market. If we initiate it as a government building, we know that this will mobilize extra kind of players to the country, and then activate also their role toward the private sector, concept. For me, government building is a very good opportunity, but also I'm thinking about government company. And we are in discussion with several entities to define also separate ISCO in close coordination with the ministry, who will be the super ISCO for government company, because that's also a very big kind of, batch of projects. And down the road, you will notice that the private sector will, exactly. And the concept of super ISCO, it's something very, very interesting. We thought it's only in Saudi and Emirates, but it's international kind of a practice. And when we opened the chance for this, when we floated the tender, I was approached by several international ISCOs. They are interested to come to Oman, invest in Oman if there is opportunity. And then we said we want to test the market, but down the road, I think that will be like an eyes opener for a lot of players to come and invest in the country.
Well, thank you so much, Mohsen. Thank you. Alan, you want to kind of add more?
To that, just for one moment, for the factories or for the industry, and going back to the point that was made there around knowledge share and all of this. So I think in Oman, you have your buildings, but industry is huge. And I think us in OQ, we would be happy to share a working group or a knowledge sharing group with some of our peers in Oman, the other oil and gas companies or other industrial players. We can set up a group like that if it's an outcome of today. But also for the factories to decarbonize, sometimes ESCO or super ESCO will work if it's not process related. But normally if you have a factory that's process related, it's a different business model. It's probably a project model. It can be performance based, but it will be one ECM maybe on steam or hot water or electricity or whatever. So in OQ, we have good experience in that. And if you have factories or clients, government or non-government, that wants to implement energy efficiency and they don't know where to start or don't know what to do, we're more than welcome to have a knowledge share with them or to help them understand or where to look for to build a baseline, et cetera, et cetera. So we can do that from our side, no problem.
Great. Does any of the other panelists have any thoughts before we conclude? All right, great. Well, thank you. Because of time and sunset is soon, you can connect with the panelists directly. But on that note, thank you all for gracing us with your presence and such fruitful conversation. Thank you all for coming. It's a full house this time around, so I really appreciate that. I know it's been, I'm assuming it's been a very hectic week for a lot of you, so thank you for sparing some time to stay with us and have this fruitful conversation. Thank you and have a great day.
Thanks to you, Rumita. Thanks to you, Rumita, as well. Thank you so much for the conversation. Thank you.
Very quickly before we leave, thank you first of all to our esteemed panelists and moderator. That was definitely an insightful discussion. I'd like to welcome our VP, or Asyad's VP, Asam Al-Shibani, to give a token of appreciation to our panelists and moderator. Thank you. I know everyone's in a rush to leave, but before you do, please help yourself with a few refreshments. And yeah, thank you.